Every once in a while, for those who love to read, you come upon an author that completely surprises you. Bo-Young Kim might be an author you've never heard of, one of the best science fiction authors writing today. My friend Bart of Bart's Bookspace gave me a short story collection, Origin of the Species and Other Stories, from 2021. Bo-Young Kim is a South Korean author. Here in North America, she might be best known as a consultant to the Bong Joon-ho film Snowpiercer of 2013. You might also know Bong Joon-ho for being the Academy Award-winning director of the movie Parasite. On the back of the short story collection, On the Origin of Species and Other Stories, Bong Joon-ho says of Bo-Young Kim, her fiction is a groundbreaking, mystic, literary, and cinematic experience, powerful and graceful. Straddling science fiction, fantasy, and myth, the writings of award-winning author Bo-Young Kim have garnered a cult following in South Korea, where she is widely acknowledged as a pioneer and inspiration. On the Origin of Species and Other Stories makes available for the first time in English some of Kim's most acclaimed stories, as well as an essay on science fiction. Kim's strikingly original, thought-provoking work teems with all manner of beings, both non-human and human, all of whom are striving to survive through evolution, be it biological, technological, or social. Whether examining the existential longings of robot scientists, or the shape-shifting transformations of a prince yearning for invisibility, or the real-life heartbreak cached inside a massively multiplayer online game, Kim's literature of ideas offers some of the most rigorous and surprisingly poignant reflections on post-human existence being written today. And it's published by Kaya Press. It's part of the Magpie series in Korean literature. I knew I was in for a remarkable reading experience when I read the introductory essay by Bo-Young Kim. Let's take a look at the table of contents first, and then we'll talk about that essay. The title of the essay is a form of literary clickbait, a brief reflection on breasts. And then we have 7 stories. One of the stories is a sequel to a previous story. So on page 148, you see On the Origin of Species, and then page 242, On the Origin of Species and What Might Have Happened Thereafter. Let's take a look at a couple of quotes from A Brief Reflection on Breasts. This is a story of breasts. Yes, breasts. The pillowy, soft mammaries of a woman. How important are breasts? I can't say for sure, as I myself am a woman. I have a pair, and through happenstance, mine are on the full side. They've never really been an issue for me. Imagine, here lives a tribe consisting only of men. None of them has ever seen a woman before. They go about life with only the vaguest of notions, acquired from rumors that something called a woman even exists. Not that I would know what such men would really think. As I said, I was born female. Anyway, when these men finally encounter a woman, their eyes go straight to her breasts. Wow, look at those soft, pillowy mounds. They put their heads together and deliberate. What is this creature? Is it even human? The general consensus is that it is not. But the more revolutionary and charitable among them decide to acknowledge the being's humanity. For now, at least. Not that the matter calls for anyone's approval, but that is what happens. A lively discussion ensues. What is the purpose of such mounds anyway? Why are they there? To seduce men? The opinion that breasts have impure intentions and thus must be covered up gains significant traction. Over time, though, this theory of breasts veers in a new direction. A pro-breast element emerges. Its members can't stop praising how beautiful, how mystical, how fully blessed breasts are. They proclaim that all that matters in a woman are her breasts, that a woman is her breasts. How important is science in science fiction? How important are breasts in a woman? If we see a person in the distance and they seem to have breasts, we hastily assume that they must be a woman. Science seems to occupy a similar position in SF. To many people's surprise, however, there are quite a few women out there without breasts. Breasts are not an absolute requirement for womanhood. As the introductory essay continues, we start to realize that this is not just an analogy for SF. It's also about being conscious, being a living entity. And what does living mean? Can that be a mechanical living? And of course, throw AI into this and it becomes a very thought-provoking essay. I want to just read a little bit from the end of the essay. P.S. To add a note to this theory of breasts, my own body came equipped with a set. I didn't, for example, decide one day to install a pair myself. Similarly, many of the stories I've written came into being without me consciously trying to turn them into SF. The tales I've told have simply unspooled from inside me. It's only later that I found out that readers labeled them SF. With this quirky introduction, I knew I was in for an interesting read, and I wasn't disappointed. I want to talk about 3 of the stories from here. The very first story is called Scriptor, and it has to do with a person who is in a game, an ancient online game. There was a promise that this game would continue to run as long as there was someone still subscribed to it. But now, years later, a company has acquired that game and they want to shut it down. Can they persuade the person still playing to come out, to perhaps join another game? But we find out that there is more than meets the eye here. In a game with ancient graphics, there is perhaps another ghost within the machine, perhaps another player, a player whose very being really relies on this game. This may sound similar to other cyberpunk stories, but this goes in some different directions. Not only about technology, but about the heart. And then let's talk about the title story and its sequel. On the Origin of Species turns our world upside down. We're in a post-climate disaster world where the only life forms for years and years have been robots that have survived and less advanced machines. Their definition of life? Life must possess free will, run on electric energy, contain a chip, and be made in a factory. But one of the robot scientists discovers organic matter that seems to be alive. He starts postulating that life may have been teeming across the planet. Could this life have been animate? Could this life have had an intelligence? This was very interesting to see how robots looked at the past and started to postulate that there could have been something like humans, that perhaps they were creators of robots. And the sequel story takes it even a step further. Both science and faith are questioned by robots. It makes us also consider what really is life. What kind of dignity is dictated to all that live? I think you can tell these stories are quite fascinating, and I like science fiction, so I really gravitated towards these. There's one story in here that's a bit more of a mythology, perhaps a South Korean mythology. But overall, I really enjoyed this collection of stories, and I want to read more from Bo-Young Kim. I give On the Origin of Species and Other Stories 9 out of 10. Highly recommended. Watch for this author. I think you'll really enjoy her work. Please let me know if you have read stories from Bo-Young Kim. Until next time, keep reading.